The Olympus FL600-R is a small, compact unit that packs a lot of features into its tiny body. It comes complete with a mounting shoe. There's a thread so you can mount the flash to a tripod or a lighting stand, and it also comes with a padded pouch. The hot shoe locks into place on the camera or on the accessory foot by dropping a pin down into the appropriate hole on the hot shoe. If we look at the flash unit closely, one of the distinguishing features that sets it apart from the other flash units out there is this LED video light, which is quite useful. This light at 1.5 meters will give you about an extra stop of illumination at full power, and you can dial down the power on the back of the gun using this dial here. So it makes a useful addition and means that you don't have to carry separate lights for video and still photography. There is a slave cell which allows it to operate as a manual slave, triggered by the flash of another non-TTL dedicated gun. And there is also another sensor here which is for when you use auto mode, and this is where the cell on the flash reads the light being reflected off the subject and controls the power output. By pressing this button on the side here, we can tilt and swivel the head. It goes 180 degrees one direction and 270 degrees in the other. As you can hear from the noise, it locks into place at each stop, and the head lifts up through 90 degrees. Looking at the head, we can see here is a Fresnel lens, and it is a zoom head which can automatically zoom in and out to follow the settings of your zoom lens, and in 35mm terms it covers from 28mm to 84, which is quite useful. And then if you decide to go a little diffusion panel that drops down, that'll take you out a little bit wider to around the 20mm mark. Also tucked in with the diffusion panel is a little bounce card type thing, but its small size would mean that it's practically useless in real terms. It's just a token. You'd be better off making one out of a piece of card or paper and an elastic band, or if you want to go the total pro look, buying a Stoffen Omnibounce will achieve the same thing. If we look on the back, we have an on-off button, a large LCD screen which allows us to see what's going on. Currently it's in manual, So showing the guide number. We have a backlight button, a test charge button, and an auto check LED light. Being part of the Micro Four Thirds standards, it means that the flash will operate on any model from Olympus, Panasonic and Leica. However, depending on the camera that it's mounted on, will depend upon the features that you have access to. It'll even mount on a Panasonic Compact or an Olympus Compact as well. And it's not too wieldy here, mounted on my Panasonic LX5. Changing the functions on the FL600-R is a little bit awkward, especially if you've got big fingers like I have. You have to press the mode dial and then turn to cycle through the various functions. The first box contains the functions related to how the camera, how the flash gun meters. At the moment it's in auto. If I turn the wheel around, I go to manual, and there you can see the guide number of 22. RC mode is remote controlled, and so forth and so forth. The next box allows you to dial in exposure compensation. I don't normally worry about that because I prefer to do it on camera using the super control panel. The next box allows you to control manually the head of the flash, so you can zoom in and out. This little box here allows you to control the LED light on the front, and you can use it to switch on as a video light, which is very useful. If we drop down to, if we go into RC mode and drop down into this bottom segment here, by flicking along, you can see now that the channel symbol is flashing, and you can cycle through the channels from 1 to 4. If we come back this way, this allows us to select which number or which group our speed light belongs to, and you have one of 3 settings, which are flash A, flash B. As you can see, it's quite fiddly if you've got big hands like I have. To set up the remote control for the flash, go into menu, click down to the second camera setting there, cycle through the flash, through the menu settings there till you get to RC mode at the bottom, press OK, switch it to on, press OK again, and now it's on, and we can tell because we've got the little RC icon at the top of the screen. Then we pop up the inbuilt flash if you've got the EM10 or you use the add-on accessory flash if you've got any of the other Olympus models, and we press OK, and we see that that has now brought up the remote can flash dialog. The bottom icon, the flashing camera, is for the camera flash, or the pop-up flash that's going to control the unit. Now generally this isn't off, but it'll be in something like TTL, manual. Now if we're shooting a scene, I don't normally want this flash gun on the camera to contribute any light to the subject, so I turn it off. It will then still emit a flash of light to trigger the remote controlled flashes, but that light will not have any impact on the picture. I can then choose my lighting groups here, which are A, B and C. You can control 3 groups. Now I've got 2 flashes that I use that are dedicated to my Olympus. I have a Metz AF44-1 and the Olympus FL600-R. With the Olympus 600-R, I can designate a group to that flash gun, but I can't with the Metz. So by default I have the Metz set at group A, which is currently off, and the Olympus flash unit as group B, and at the moment that is in manual mode at half power, but I can slide down and change that to off and TTL. The next box along shows I can dial in from my camera flash exposure compensation. Now the flash exposure compensation has no effect on the global exposure, so that means that each unit that I am controlling, or each group, I can set in a different flash exposure compensation, and this will give me lighting ratios. So say I want my Olympus flash to be a key light, I set it with no flash exposure compensation, but my Metz unit, which I'll now switch on to TTL, I want it to be the fill light, and I want a ratio of 2:1. I can dial in -1 stop of flash exposure compensation, which means now that the Olympus unit is putting out twice the amount of light to that of the Metz. The next little box along is whether you are in FP mode, or which is high speed flash sync, or you are in ordinary flash mode. If you want to use the remote control with high speed flash, both your flashes and your controller need to be set for that. So there it is in FP mode. Okay. The next box down is to do with the signal that is put out by the little flash on the top here with all the onboard flash, whether it's high, low or medium. With light flashes being emitted by the little on-camera flash that are easily overpowered by the sun, I always leave mine as a default high, and this gives me the most success rate for setting off the flash. and the final setting here is to select the channel. Really that only has a lot of use if, say, you're shooting with a lot of other Olympus or Micro Four Thirds users all using off-camera flash at the same time and not wanting to interfere. So you've got the choice of 4 channels. 1, 2, 3, 4. Arbitrarily I've set mine on 4, don't ask me why. And if you were shooting with somebody else in the studio, they could set theirs to channel 1 to 3 and it wouldn't affect the flashes that you were using. Okay. So that's relatively straightforward. Here we are testing the consistency of the FL600-R in conjunction with the Olympus EM10. I've set the camera and the flash up to fire remote control onto my still life scene here. I've set up a grey card in the background so we can see how that is rendered, and the camera is shooting JPEGs and there will be no post-processing apart from resizing it to fit on the video. The flash is on, set in remote control mode, turn my camera on. Shooting in TTL mode for the flash. I've set my camera to manual mode, picking the highest sync speed for remote control, which on this model is 1/100th of a 60th of a second. I've selected f5.6 as my aperture, and let's just see how it does. All I have to do is touch the screen and we'll just review the settings. That looks pretty good on the screen, and now I'll just repeat. While we're here, we'll also test for the consistency of the manual output. And going into the flash menu, I'll just switch the camera and the flash over to manual. I'll set the power ratio on the flash at half power. With my flash meter, I'll test, fire the gun manually. It's giving me a reading of about F16 exactly. So I'll set the camera aperture to F16. Fire. Check it. And fire again. As you can hear from the quite high-pitched whine there from the flash recycling, it does recycle quite quickly, doing bursts at half power. If we go again, and again, that's 3 seconds to recharge. Not bad going on fresh batteries. Well, here I am on location at a local reserve, and I'm going to do some real-world testing of the Olympus FL600-R flash gun. Let's set the camera to aperture priority. I think I'm going to mix initially to start with, I'm going to mix the flash with the ambient light I want the flash to be the key light and the ambient light to be the fill light, and I'll start off with a ratio of 2:1. So that means my key light over here will be twice as bright as the ambient light, which will be the fill. And so how I'm going to achieve that is I'm going to dial in -1 stop into the exposure compensation. There we go. Now, we've discussed previously that this doesn't have any effect on the flash exposure because the two aren't linked. So we'll just take a quick shot. I've set the aperture to f5.6 to blur out some of the messy background, and we'll just take a shot. And that looks quite nice, judging from the back of the screen here, which isn't always the best. But I can see on a couple of the edges of the plant here that they are a little bit burnt out here. Not much, so I'm going to put in some flash exposure compensation. Not much. Just wait for the breeze to die a bit, and there we go. Let's see what's happened there. So we'll just set this up into manual mode. Shutter manual. I've selected my shutter speed as 1/160th of a second. I'll dial in F13 should give me -3 stops here. And there we go. Almost, but not quite. Still got a few distracting bits, so I may stop down to F16 to see where we go with that. A little bit closer. I'll try again. F22, and I'm running out of f-stops, so I hope this is about it. If you haven't got a flash for your Micro Four Thirds system, give this some serious consideration. Thank you.